I know you have two brothers.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff going on that Gary Owens is saying that y'all might be related, might be twins. Can we dispel that rumor or make it real? Like
We're related. Me and Gary are related.
Okay.
He's a little bit older than me. He's my second cousin, first time removed. My second cousin, once removed from a first cousin's brother's uncle that was partially from Poland, that I believe was also a roommate of my grandma's aunt.
Gary, I apologize. So there we have it. Gary Owens and Joseph Sikora are related. What's going on, y'all? It's your boy June Archer here, the Winner Circle, here with my guest, the one, the only, Joseph Sikora. You know him as Tommy. Most recently, you know him as Frank Jr. He's hit us with it can't be a trifecta. Maybe we'll just call it a fourfecta. Lil Durk, Jeremiah video for the theme song, Nicki Minaj, Lil Baby, Power, and Ozark. Now, one would have to say you might be now one of the hardest working men in show business. How does it feel to hit him with four things back to back out the gate for 2022?
You know, it's fun, June, when luck is on the same page as timing is on the same page as some skill. You got to have those skills to pay the bills, so you got to be prepared when those opportunities present themselves. And I'm just lucky that the opportunities presented themselves. Boom, boom, boom. That's how it went.
Proper preparation.
Yes.
So I want to go back to the beginning of the story, if you will allow me. Chicago born. Two brothers, it's three of you. How was it growing up in Chicago during that time? When did you get caught by the acting bug?
Growing up in Chicago, we grew up on the far northwest side in the Norwood Park and Jefferson Park neighborhoods, which is considered the far northwest side. So we had a lot of city workers, and to work for the municipality of Chicago, you have to live within those city boundaries. So you have these different pocketed neighborhoods that are often representative of those people and those workers. So you'd have like Jefferson Park, Norwood Park, Edgewater, and then on the south side you'd have like Mount Greenwood and even kind of Beverly to some extent. So growing up at that time period in Chicago was a pretty exciting time. Even in the 80s there was a huge amount of crime and also corruption within the city, but it was also a lot of new ideas, and I think that's also in New York, of course.
Right.
New York was the mecca for everything. I mean, hip hop was blowing up. Hip hop, not only hip hop, but like hip hop culture. Like KRS-One always says, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live.
Yeah.
And so the permeation of hip hop culture was really, really going through all the different facets in the city of Chicago. So that said, right about the same time I discovered hip hop, I discovered acting, and that was right about the time I was 10 years old. There was a show on called Kids Incorporated that starred, I think Fergie was in it, and I can't remember if anybody else like famous came out of it, but there was these kids that were rock and roll stars, and they did these acting skits. I says, Ma, I want to be an actor. And she's like, all right, honey, if you want to be an actor in a month, come back. And so like a month came by, and I was like, Ma, I still want to be an actor. So she got the Yellow Pages out, and she looked up acting.
Wow. She didn't Google it.
Yeah.
The Yellow Pages.
The Yellow Pages, yes. And there was nothing really under acting, so we looked up theater and got involved with some theater, and then from there I did a little bit of commercial here and different professional Chicago theater productions, and that's how I started. And then I took acting classes at a northern border suburb of Chicago called Evanston, where I took acting classes at the Noise Cultural Arts Center at the Piven Theater, which is Jeremy Piven's parents, where they started it, called Joyce and Byrne, who are amazing, amazing people. And that was my acting education in a nutshell to begin.
Now, you're attending Notre Dame Prep. Before you go to Columbia, what was that experience like? Falling in love with hip hop, wanting to do the acting thing. Did you even realize that you could merge those two worlds at that time?
At that time, no way. It didn't even none of that made any sense. No, I didn't realize anything. My life was very compartmentalized. We grew up close enough to the suburbs. It's basically like if we grew up in Bayside, Queens, it would be like, one of my brothers would like go to Long Island and so off to Nassau County.
Right.
But then me and my younger brother, we would kind of explore more of the neighborhood and go further in, and probably, would have gone into Manhattan and explored Brooklyn and stuff like that. So I think like that's kind of the comparison. So where we were as, I started writing graffiti when I was 11. So that brought me to a lot of different parts of the city. My father had really, really close friends who were instrumental in terms of my growing up in Chicago, down on the south side in a neighborhood called Auburn Gresham. So, and then when I was boxing, I started very late in life when I was 17, but you box all around the city. It's called
Right.
park districts.
Okay.
So you go to the different park districts all around the city. And so there was all of these different facets to me and who I was as an individual, that the necessity was for me to explore the city. So I got to know the city of Chicago much more than most people do.
Do you find when you're traveling, as you're doing now a lot, being able to be pulled in so many different directions, what do you like to extract from different cultures, different communities as you're traveling around?
Love, food, traditions, different things that are maybe not the culture that is that I'm around all the time. I think that just being open to different cultures when I was younger and different people, and I always said that I was lucky to have grown up in Chicago, which is a very divided city that always comes up. I was very blessed to have not only black people, but people of color that loved me. And I think that when you have that experience, it changes your perspective.
Exponentially.
Exponentially. Well put, yep.
Now, are you a foodie? Because
I'm a
when
foodie.
you grow
I'm a
up in,
foodie.
when
I'm
you
a
grow up in
foodie.
Chicago,
about it. Let's
talk
talk
about the
about it.
Chi, you talk about,
Food.
listen,
Oh, you wanna talk
the
about
taste of
pizza?
Chicago.
Taste of Chicago. You've been.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious? Man, listen, you don't have enough appetite to tackle the taste of Chicago.
Taste of Chicago is amazing. Those damn tickets. God, I mean, COVID probably ruined that whole thing. But the Taste of Chicago was phenomenal. I worked Taste of Chicago.
Really?
Yes, I worked for the Lombardos at Gibson's, where I think we just gave out onion. It was onion rings was our thing, something small. Gibson's is known for their steak, and it's a great steak, and a great martini too, I might add. And see, it's the simple things that people usually screw up. You'd think it'd be easier
Right.
to fry an egg, and sometimes you're like, what did you say?
They try to add a little stank
Come
on
on,
it. That's what it is.
stop
Try to
it.
add a little stank on
There
it.
you
and
go.
It doesn't work.
But so Chicago, the one thing that New York, because New York has got incredible food as well, and it's amazing. The one thing New York cannot do better than Chicago, only one, a hot dog. Chicago hot dog, Vienna beef, can't be messed with.
Really. So deep dish pizza or New York style pizza?
Well, let's say New York style pizza if we just mean like a thin crust regular pie,
all
of
right.
course. And New York's got it down. And there's a great Chicago pie sometimes is as good as an average New York pie. New York has got pizza down. That's all there is to it. Now the deep dish is its own thing. It's a little bit of what I want to say, not shtick, but it's a touristy thing more than anything else. It was invented like that. It was invented by a white dude from Texas who was I think of Irish descent, and a Mexican guy that was his partner. So they first, from this is what the legend says, that at first, at least how the deep dish is now, was supposed to be an inside-out burrito at first. It was going to be a Mexican thing, and then they're like,
that.
oh, well, you know what? Instead of this, maybe we're going to make this pizza like that, kind of like the reverse of that. There is a place called Rosati's in Chicago that claims to have had it on the menu since 1923, I believe. But other than that, I'm not sure how legitimate that is. The Chicago-style deep dish pizza didn't start until the late 1950s. So, New York, even if you say New York-style pie, has got it beat by well over half a century.
Have to be.
It's New York's got pizza down, and you don't want to mess with that.
So 3 of you grown up, Chicago.
Yes.
Who is the comedic one out of the 3? And how competitive were you guys growing up?
Super interesting questions. I mean, 3 boys, we were all competitive enough. My older brother is a Catholic chaplain in San Diego. So he is such a beautiful, beautiful man, and calm and understanding and patient and kind, and he's still ripped and in incredible shape. I admire him so much. But he and I were competitive. In fact, when I started boxing in high school, he and I, we put on like just pads, some kind of like wimpy like pads on our hands, and we were boxing. I broke his nose, which I still feel bad about to this day. But my
You know that he is a Catholic
chaplain.
So you.
But he was undefeated as an amateur boxer.
Oh, okay.
I lost a lot significantly. I was almost 50. I was 19-13 officially on my record, but I got beat up a decent amount. But you know, it was one of the reasons why I was tired of getting beat up in the streets. I was tired of like the lack of discipline, and this was the discipline in boxing helped in so many different ways. One of the ways was, yes, it taught you a fighting technique, which is important for self-preservation. But what it also does is it makes you walk away from fights like, I want to fight Saturday. If I got, you know, my nose broke here, or my eye split, or I hurt my hand,
Right.
and I can't fight, like I'm ruining a fun opportunity, because boxing is fun, and
Right.
there's a lot of camaraderie, but there's also a very lonely sport in some ways, because it's only you in that ring. There's nowhere to hide. It's like acting in that way. There's really, especially like stage acting, there's nowhere to hide. You're exposed, and I love the sport of boxing. And my old coach, Tom O'Shea, rest in peace. I miss that man every day. He's one of the most influential males in my life, and gave me a lot of confidence in myself.
Let's take that discipline for boxing. How do you personally transfer it into acting?
The discipline, to me, it's almost like a math test, both boxing and acting. When you study for a math test and it's time to take that math test, there's no crunching for the math test. You either learned that or you don't know that.
Wow, yeah.
And
yeah.
that's it. So when you're boxing, it's like you either did that training and you're going to be able to make it through those 3 rounds or those 5 rounds for those 2 minutes or those 3 minutes, or you're going to get winded and you didn't have it. So it's just that simple. And then the second part is that with acting, when they say action, you either studied those lines, made those decisions, put in those time, put in that hour, or you didn't, and it's going to show. So with me, a lot of people do method acting. Our good friend Omari Hardwick, who is an incredible actor and was so much fun to play with, between action and cut, I knew that guy had my back. So, but he's very method. He stays in that character. He's fully immersed. Whereas me, and I think it's because I come from theater, I do all the homework at home. So I show up
Gotcha.
and I'm able to, and what I do, and this is just my own preparation, and I respect everybody's process, is I flip the switch. And I keep Tommy as close as I needed to keep Tommy, especially for those first seasons. If I needed to talk like Tommy, if I needed to act like Tommy, that's what I needed to do to make sure that Tommy was present on the screen. And then when it's like riding a bike, you can flip it on, you can flip it off. And that's, to me, is a symbol for me of the discipline of taking the work seriously but lightly. I'm not curing cancer, but I am entertaining the world.
Right.
And I think that's important too. So I do take it important. I do take it seriously, but myself lightly.
What do you do from a mental health perspective to kind of boost your mental fitness? There are times where Tommy Egan goes into a dark place. What does
That's a great
what does
question,
Joseph
Joe.
Sikora do?
Well, I went into dark places as well. I had anger issues and anger troubles. I went to anger management therapy for 2 years. I was prompted by my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, and probably one of the reasons is because I went to anger management therapy. I still go to therapy every week. It's important. A lot of times it feels like it's doing nothing. You're like, yo, I could save this money. Just talk to a friend or talk to this person.
Go out to dinner and just have a drink, yeah.
And that's important stuff to do too. But sometimes when you have the opportunity, and mental health care is so much more widely available than it was when we were younger,
Yeah.
and it's so much more accepted, the stigma is gone from it in a lot of ways. And what it does is you have, a skilled professional in their field listening. So when you're giving out that energy and that information, they're reciprocating that back to you in healthy ways. Like, I found out my anger is not like Tommy Egan's anger totally.
Right.
My anger was fear-based. I was a little animal backed into a corner, and I'm like, you're messing with me too much, and then it was all or nothing.
Right.
So that was my primary anger, was out of being forced physically, emotionally, any which way into a corner is how I felt, and then I burst out. Tommy Egan is just ruthless, vengeful.
Yeah, his is out front.
Well, in some ways, Tommy had to work twice as hard to get noticed in the hood because he was the odd person out because he was the unaccepted one.
Right.
And I think that sometimes when we think about Tommy Egan being made by black culture, Tommy Egan, I was glad to portray him and be the vessel for Tommy Egan. But I say make no mistake about it, Tommy Egan was made by black culture. And I mean that in a way that black culture said, all right, I don't, I'm not detecting bullshit here. I accept this character. This is ours. We're claiming this character.
Him. He's out. He's one of us.
And part of that I think is the reflective in not only the writing but also the portrayal of saying here's a person. I think that unfortunately, and I think things are changing slowly, but that I think oftentimes in a professional situation, black people did have to prove themselves twice as much that white people did not have to. And black and Latin, they were expected like, oh, it's not just, I can't just put this person in the corner. I can't just compartmentalize this thing. They've proven themselves too much and had to become so valuable
over and over again
just to be on that level. And I think in some ways that's reflective of the Tommy character, that he had to prove himself twice as much just to be taken this much seriously. So there's that intensity and that drive I think a lot of people can understand intrinsically.
People are going through a lot, especially during the past 2 years with the pandemic, trying to keep the lights on, trying to keep a roof over their head, trying to make sure they pay their bills. For you, going through therapy, what is the best piece of advice you could give someone that is going through something right now to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, or to say, you know what, this is the reason why I endorse therapy?
Because therapy taught me that everything is cyclical, everything is temporary. But that's also important to remember that your happiness is temporary. Just like your sadness. This too shall pass. Your happiness will pass. So if you think of things, yes, all, moderation and stuff, but the best part about that is when people say all things in moderation, my dad always said, but they forget the best part. All things in moderation, including moderation.
Right.
So you should have the highs. There will be the lows. But just know that it will pass. No matter how bad something seems, it will pass. So when you get caught up and you say, I don't believe it, you're actually fighting against real nature, because nature passes. Different things change. So when you're like, no, I'm sad, I'm always going to be sad, you're actually doing yourself the biggest disservice, because nature is telling you that's not true.
Right.
And when you're always happy, you're trying to figure out, how do I stay happy? How does this drug make me always happy? How do I stay on this high? You're fighting against nature. It's unsustainable.
So you, in essence, you're blocking your blessings. Like
man.
You throw it out to the universe, and you're gonna get back 100% of what you actually give.
You can't fight the ocean. You have to give in to the waves.
Wow, that's a gem right there. Say it one more time, because there's somebody in the back that didn't hear that.
And you can't fight the ocean. You got to give in to the waves. It looks like waves always just come in.
Yeah.
They always go back out.
Wow. I want to talk about Ozark.
Let's talk about it. What a role.
Frank Jr.
Fun. For a small role, pretty impactful.
Very impactful. I think for a minute there, you threw me off. I'm like, I'm waiting for Tommy.
Yeah.
But then Frank, you give us something different with Frank. How were you able to prepare for that role to step outside of, because you talk about stepping outside of Tommy, put him away. How were you able to step outside of that and give us somebody different with Frank Jr. that we fell in love with Frank Jr.?
I think some of the ways were just that I'm an actor, so I act. But one of the great things, I'm glad you asked that question, is I'm coming off a hit show. It's like the second biggest show on television, second to Game of Thrones. And I'm one of the leads. And I have to audition for this role? So I was like, okay, come on, get over yourself. Audition. You love this show. You know what I mean? You love Ozark. It's one of your favorite shows. Let's audition for Ozark. So I auditioned. Luckily and very gratefully got the role. And then I auditioned one way, but when I showed up on set and I did one take, and Jason Bateman was directing, and he's like, yeah, Joe, can I talk to you for a second? I think it's different. Got to go more extreme, with it. Like he's just super straightforward. He was basically telling me, your choices they're close, they're not right. You need to go more. This guy is unfortunately, he's fighting against it, but he's more pathetic. He knows less of what he's doing. He's in his his father's shadow
Right.
even more. He's even more frustrated.
There's an
He's
intimidation factor.
There is
There's
just
a
even
low
more.
self-esteem. There's all of that.
The confidence. He's trying to be cocksure. He's got the cool car. He's trying to like, I'm gonna spend the money. He's got his but it was even more extreme. And then when Jason Bateman, and I'm so grateful to Jason Bateman for giving me really great direction. And I was happy that I had, and I don't think I'll ever lose my humility. I hope to God not. Somebody slap me. Anybody in here has permission to slap me if I do. Swear to God.
I might shove you, but I'm not gonna slap you.
Okay, so a shove, Mario could slap me, Jeremy will be behind me, I'll fall down. But I think that because of that, it allowed me to be, a totally new person with a different perspective from very far away from Tommy Egan. And then in the 4th season, when you come back, you have all of that. The guy's got his cock and ball shot partially off. The surgery that takes to reconstruct a dick is crazy. They have to cut. 9 times out of 10, they cut your thigh here, and they reconstruct the shaft of the penis with whatever is left. Then also this, you can't. Often you're not taking in full food. You have to it's like a liquid diet. You're on this. So that's why in the thing I lost almost 20 pounds in with less than a month. So Frank Jr. was a little more emaciated. And then also I love the development of kind of this. He's much more, almost has even less to lose. No pun intended.
Right.
With the puns are crazy with this guy. But
what else could go wrong?
But with Ruth, and he's just kind of like, I wonder, in my mind, I wondered if he reconstructed this bigger phallus for Ruth.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's the reason this got put. Man, there's something to her. And if I ever did,
shout out to Ruth.
I'm gonna have this hug. Yeah,
Ruth.
Julia Garner.
Yeah,
from the Bronx.
She's dope. She's dope.
Yeah, she's dope and a good person too. I had a great time playing Frank Jr. And a big shout out to Chris Mundy, the showrunner, who's just one of the most brilliant writers I've had the luxury of working with. What a nice guy.
From Mundy to Bateman.
Yeah, great people.
How great is that feeling when you bring what you thought was the best version of Frank Jr. and to get that direction? Like, how did it push you further?
It just reminded me that there's no excuse to be lazy in your acting. There's no excuse not to embrace these moments and be grateful for every job and every opportunity. And there's no excuse not to listen. Because if I was right, I think that I would have fought for that a little stronger. But I wasn't positive that I was right. And I think a lot of times I find in this industry, people fight for their idea rather than fighting for the best idea.
Another gem. Another gem. Yeah, I'm gonna write that one down. I'm gonna replay this one, and I'm gonna write that one down. So well versed, Joe. You lead with humility. For you, what has been the best piece of advice that you may have gotten from your parents that allows you to try to keep that humility and try to walk your best foot forward at all times when you have the opportunity to do so?
This is the first quote that came into my head, was from my dad, and I don't know if this actually answers your question perfectly or not, but it's a really great quote. And when I was a young man and I had the anger problems, my dad said that you're smart enough to know if a fight is going to happen, Joey, and if it is, hit him first and hit him hard. And I don't know if that totally answers the question, but I think of that quote often because it gives you the confidence to know, like, okay, yeah, all right, I could take care of myself. I've been given permission to take care of myself in some ways.
How has the journey been up to this point for you?
Ups and downs. I still fight with depression sometimes, and it's totally unfounded. I'm glad I still talk to my therapist because I still go to anger. Like, I just had some stuff happen this week where I'm so mad, and it's like, what are you mad at, man? What are you mad at? You can afford. Most of my life, I was really poor. And I couldn't afford to take a girl out to dinner. I couldn't afford to go to certain places that I saw my friends going to. Part of that was my own mentality of like, don't spend beyond your means. Don't spend, don't, be squirrely with the money and I was collecting unemployment and still trying to like send money to my brother who was living in Bulgaria in the Peace Corps so he could like survive, and putting up drywall in Queens every now and again when I had the opportunity. But, you know, I think that right now I just have to sit back, remind myself, continue to breathe. And I'm being serious. I'm going to look into the camera when I say this. I forget to breathe all the time. Like, of course, I'm alive, so I'm not forgetting to breathe all the time. But, like, right now, I can feel how shallow my breath is. And I'm sure a lot of us are like this. I try to remind myself, take a second and just breathe. It changes everything. It's pretty important.
No, I love that. The hip hop culture has embraced you. We love you. We love everything you stand for, no matter if you're Frank Jr., no matter if you're Tommy Egan, no matter if you're just Joseph Sikora. When we see you, you love people. You are a people person.
I do love people.
And that's a beautiful thing. You were just recently on Drew Barrymore's show with our guy, 50 Cent, and kind of sent a message to Eminem. An invitation of some sort.
I never met him, and I've been in the same building as him like 3 times in my life, or 4.
So can we see that happen? Are we going to see that happen? Was that an opportunity to say, why haven't we seen each other? Why haven't we been in the same space? Or maybe you guys are going to get in the studio together?
Oh my God, yeah, right? Yeah. Oh, did you hear that cut on the K-Slay record? With me and OT The Real and
Come on.
You're gonna play it, right? That was hard. I have to say, I have this friend that I think we both know, this guy Renee. He was just like, man, I came up with these bars at first, and he said, man, you're not playing. These young boys are gonna take you out. That doesn't cut the mustard.
I know Renee didn't do that.
Oh, he did.
He did.
He did, and he's.
I mean, he's a music guy, so he's coming from a different perspective. I respect him.
He's like, listen, man, I'm telling you as a friend, I don't want people laughing at my guy. So go back and rewrite that verse.
Wow.
I went back, I rewrote it, came down, me and K-Slay, we laid it down. Millie's, OT The Real, my guys.
Dropped it.
Boom.
Spoken like a true A&R, that guy, Renee. A true A&R. Gotta love him.
You gotta love him.
So 2 videos that you're in. One with some of your Chicago homies. One, Nicki Minaj and Lil Baby. Mm-hmm. How did that happen, and how did it feel working with Lil Baby and Nicki Minaj?
Let's do the Nicki Minaj one first, because it was great. Like, I'm a fan of Nicki Minaj. She's in my top 5 females for sure, definitely. And it came out of, she was talking to Deon Taylor, the great director, Deon Taylor, who directed the finale of Power Book 4 Force. He directed me in The Intruder. Also, I acted in and executive produced a film that's going to be coming out soon called Fear with Deon. Just a great, prolific guy. But he's friends with Nicki. And she was naming some actors. She's like, well, there's this role in here, and I want like maybe this person or this person or this person. He goes, that person I know. You got to get Joe. Joseph Sikora you get Joseph. You don't think about anybody else. Well, I can get him. So he gives me a call, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, man, definitely. It seems like a fun idea. I'm a fan and whatever. So I get down there, and then I get to meet Lil Baby, who was such a cool guy. Such a cool, honest, straightforward.
He's a dope dude.
And what a great musician, and what a great artist. And I had a really fun and wacky time. Where June, I enjoyed myself so much being there.
And you did well, believable.
Yeah, well, I mean, cops and robbers are almost 2 sides of the same coin. One's usually just backed by the government.
Wow. So Lil Durk and Jeremiah.
Lil Durk and Jeremiah. Yeah, so they're back to the robbers.
Spoken like a true boxer. As soon as I got you in the corner, you try to get, I'm going to put you back in the corner.
But Jeremiah is a friend, a hell of an actor. What a privilege to call that guy, a friend. He's a great human being. He's kind, he's sensitive. He's also no nonsense, no BS. And what an artist. And an intelligent guy too. I only met Lil Durk on that day, but I'm a fan of his too, and I'm impressed with how there's keeping it real, where there's that little bit it's like keeping it real with a little dash of fronting because you're scared of something.
Right.
He's not.
He is who he say he is.
He is who he says he is, but with that he wants to be like, you can just tell there's also this vibe of like, hey, this is the reality, but I want to be happy. I'm doing this, like, here's my demons, here's my story, here's, what I'm about. But don't forget, like, that top layer, I want to be happy. And I was kind of, like, taken a little bit aback by that. And his he's got a kind face too, and a lot of smiling. And I said that to Fifth once. One of my favorite 50 Cent quotes was, I said, damn, Fifth, you're always smiling, man, when you're on set and you're over here. You're always smiling. He goes, spend a lot of time frowning, Joe.
Wow. Well, that leads me to a nice alley-oop. The 17th anniversary of the massacre.
Wow.
50 has given us a lot of music.
The massacre actually even sold more than, did it sell more than Get Rich or Die Trying? I mean, it was another huge,
It was
massive,
huge, but
massive
it
hit.
wasn't Get Rich or Die Trying.
Well, Get Rich or Die Trying, it broke the initial record. In the
yeah.
longevity in terms of, I'm not sure though. I don't want to say nothing about that.
What's your favorite 50 record?
Let me see. My favorite 50 record is got to be Get Rich or Die Trying, because I can remember when it came out. And I actually talked about this before. Fifth used to have, like, back in the day, because we were contemporaries, like those mixtapes were no joke. Like Fifth, before Fifth got shot, Fifth had mixtapes that came out and made their way to Chicago and Detroit and everywhere else. So like I had my one friend, shout out to Matt Lawson, who had 50's tapes like way back in the day. So I was familiar enough with 50 Cent. And then when 50, with everything that happened with him getting shot and everything like that, that was on the news. And then when Get Rich or Die Trying came out, you were just like, it was really next level. I knew that I was hearing an evolution of hip hop in that album.
And those tapes were dope back then. And shout out to Julian Alexander, Slang Inc., who did those covers. That's how I was introduced to 50 during the Columbia days, before Get Rich or Die Trying.
And my boy did one of the art pieces, that coin, the 50 Cent coin with 50 on it, is by Tyroo Slang Jones.
Shout out to Tyroo Slang Jones.
Yeah, Tyroo is a brilliant artist and one of the best graffiti writers in the world.
With all the ups and downs, the highs and lows, for you, I like to ask people and tell people music is a soundtrack to our lives. Mm-hmm. What song best represents your journey up to this point? If you had to choose a song, or even an artist, did you say, this artist embodies my journey up to this point? I listened to this song, or I listened to this artist in the times of ups and the times of downs.
Well, I would say that would be Rakim. I think that as an artist, it was always hard hitting, but like thought provoking, and the skill was just off the chain. It was just so next level that I often go back to that Paid in Full album, really, and
it's a classic album.
I mean, Rakim is such an embodiment of struggle and strife and coolness and calmness and determination. I mean, all these millions of lyrics are going through my head too, but I was like, cool, I don't get upset. I just
kick in the door,
kicking a hole in the speaker, and I jet.
Pull the plug and I jet. Yeah.
Back to the lab without a mic to grab. Like, gotta do it again. Gotta do it again.
If you could have one superhero power, what would it be?
Man, one of my favorite things my wife ever said, we were in Italy, and I said, boy, wouldn't it be great to fly? She said, yeah, I'd fly low. I don't even know what that means, but I think about it all the time. Flying. I think maybe flying.
Flying. I like that.
I would love to be able to fly. Yeah, flying. I mean, that's such a personal thing too. Like, it'd be kind of cool to have something that would even be like bigger if there was a superhero power where you could like just think, like the Thanos thing, if you could just think something,
just snap.
And it just happens. You'd have to be really careful with that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I want to ask you this, Joe. You've given us so much with the first power. You're now blessed with the second show, your spinoff. It's
a blessing.
Doing incredibly well. And I'm going to put it out into the universe. I'm going to speak it into existence. We're going to have a season 2. I'm putting it out there, because sometimes if you don't put it out there, it's not going to come back.
Well, the boss already told me we're having a season 2, so I believe him.
So there we go. Now let's say 5 years goes by, and we're coming to the end of Power Force.
I think that's a good approximation.
What do you want people to leave knowing about Tommy when it's all said and done? What did Tommy leave as his legacy?
That's interesting. To me, those are two not very different questions, but they're two different questions. One of the things that I want people to realize about Tommy is that even if you're alive, we can die many deaths. Sometimes death might not be the worst thing in the world. I think that part of what I want to show is the struggle is that animalistically, Tommy is a survivor. Some people are just survivors. Tommy is definitely that guy who would chew off his arm to get out of a trap. He survives on instinct, and he doesn't necessarily survive all the time for advancement or love or anything positive. It's an animal instinct. Tommy is so animal that I think that a lot of times we are watching the id rooting for the ego. So to put it in even more layman's terms, of like a lot of times we're seeing the baseness of Tommy and just the hustling and just like this. So I think that when we have the repose of love, of what Tommy cares for, of family, of bringing a pizza to his new brother he's still trying to make sense of in his mind, we can see the humanity in somebody who could get very easily be two-dimensional. We're forced to see the third and maybe even the fourth dimension of this guy.
That's dope.
I love Tommy. I think about him all the time, and I think about him different to me, and I like watching him sometimes, and I know that I'm in the pocket with that character when I do not see myself. And I don't even see my history. And of course, there's always aspects of yourself that are in that character. It'd be a mistake not to bring yourself and your life into every character that you play. But Tommy has really taken on a life of his own, and I try to be as much hands-off as possible. What a luxury for an actor.
Yeah.
Most actors in their whole life, their whole career, are not blessed with sitting in a different person's mind at best for this long. So sometimes when you just take everything away, we have Gary Lennon next season, and I think that's fair to say. I don't know if we're gonna have to erase that or not, but we have Gary Lennon next season. So if Gary Lennon is writing this show, the writing is that good,
right.
I have to do almost nothing. I just have to show up and be. One of my favorite things, I was seeing a show at Steppenwolf called Mojo, and it was Veterans Day. And just because I had no money, I wore an old Navy, I was a kid, I don't know, maybe 18 or 19. I wore a Navy jacket from my dad's friend, electrical technician. And I was in there, and one of the guys, one of the vets, raises his hand, and he goes, "Listen, I don't see what's so hard about acting. You just gotta memorize the lines and then be that guy." And like, that's the most simplistic way I've ever heard acting put, because there's a million steps from A to Z.
Right.
But he got it. You just have to memorize those lines and then be that guy. So to me, I finally, after 8 years of playing Tommy Egan, all I have to do when the writing is good is just memorize those lines and be that guy.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joseph Sikora. I am June Archer. Wearing the classic Walker wear. You know how we do it. This is 50.com, the Winner Circle. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Like it, love it, share it. Peace.
All eyes on me.